Hey everybody, it's Kate, the West Coast Paper Crafter. You are joining me for project number 2 with the Cake Celebrations card class at home. Tonight we are going to make this card design. I call this a casual design, and how I define a casual design is a crafter who is not quite a beginner and has collected a few different supplies and is expanding beyond just paper, ink, and stamps. So casual isn't super fancy, but it does incorporate a few more elements into card making. So I'm going to flip the camera around and we will get started. Now I'm going to warn you, I am terrible at setting my camera focus. It's a little bit bumpy. You might want to close your eyes. One moment. All right, so now I'm just going to get set up. Hang on. See what I'm talking about? I just never get it quite. All right, that might be okay. Might be okay. Let's see if I can just raise my camera a little bit higher. I think that's good. All right. Thank you for putting up with me because I am terrible at getting my camera to zoom. It's just my weakness. So I'm bringing up my computer so I can see your comments. Hello, Carissa. Hello, Judy. Jackie, thanks for joining me tonight. Now, this project, like I said, for casual crafting, we're just incorporating a few more elements besides our paper, ink, and stamps. So I am using the Spotlight on Nature dies and the dies that come with the Cake Celebration bundle. Let me get that out of my way. So before we get started, it's very simple to put this card together. Oh, and of course I'm using this stamp set, Cake Celebrations. I love it. So I've gone ahead and I've cut out all of these pieces from the Cake Celebration die set. So I've got 2 cake bases in Early Expresso, and in Crumb Cake I have stamped the little layers and the frosting for the top of the cake. And I've stamped the cake platter, die cut the cake platter out of silver foil. So we need to obviously assemble our pieces. And if you have a tiny little glue bottle that has a fine tip, I would highly recommend it. I do love my Tombow, but it's a little bit, these layers, they're tiny. So if you have a little bottle, it's going to be helpful. So what I do is I add just the tiniest layer. Actually, hang on. I start with the frosting. I'm getting ahead of myself. So chocolate cake with peanut butter frosting, Carissa, I've never tried it. I feel like I should. I don't know how I have never tried that. All right. So I always start with the frosting because from trial and error, if I put the frosting down first, then I can add my cake layers and space them better. So you just put a little bit of glue on the back of your frosting with your fine tip glue and glue it down. And once you have that frosting glued down, then you can just figure out where you're going to put your layers. Now, just to save a little bit of time tonight, I've already gone ahead and glued my layers together, but I'm just giving you an idea of how I like to start out my cake layers and frosting first, just so I can get those little layers spaced better. All right, you get the idea. Now, with the platter, there's 2 pieces for it. We've got the base and then this little piece I just glued down right on top, and it gives it a little more dimension. I'll hold that up. So that, you don't need that second piece, but it just adds a little bit more dimension. All right, I'm going to get these out of the way. Now, if you are crafting along and you don't have the, oops, sorry, don't mind me, I'm just trying to refresh my comments. Okay, so if you don't have the dies to build your cake, then you can just go ahead and stamp a cake on the cake platter and then fussy cut it out. So either way work. If you don't have the dies, you can just go ahead and cut a cake and fussy cut it. It's super simple. So the dies, the cake is a little bit taller, but that's totally fine. And you could always build more layers to your stamped cake if you choose. So I threw the link for the cake celebration bundle in the comments if you don't have the stamp set and you feel like you are missing out. And if you're in Canada, of course, then check that link out because you can pick it up. Now, card base, I have got Smoky Slate. It is 4 1/4 by 11, and it's scored at 5.5 on the 11-inch side. I've got a piece of designer series paper. This is from the Toadstools Garden, which is a celebration item until February. But there's a piece of designer series paper in the Nests of Winter Designers pack that's got a wood grain as well. So both work, and actually any designer series paper is going to work. So I'm just going to glue this down to my card front, but you could also emboss it if you choose. It's totally up to you. So before I glue it down, I'm just going to add some linen thread around the front of this designer series paper, and I'm going to wrap it around twice and tie it in a bow. So I'm just going to make sure I've got some extra linen thread hanging over the edge, and I'm going to wrap it around once and then twice. Make sure I've got enough extra thread that I can tie it in a bow. And then, if my linen thread behaves, I'm going to tie this in a bow. So if you have reverse tweezers, which I do have, I just have no idea where in my stash they are, they're very handy for helping you with almost like an extra set of hands by holding down your thread when you're trying to tie that bow. So I'm going to add my bow to the left side of the paper. It doesn't matter where you put it, but that's just kind of, I feel like a lefty today, so I'm going to add it to the left. And then just tie a little bow. And I've got lots of extra string left over. I'm just going to tighten up my loops because I want them a little bit smaller. So I'm going to put my finger on the knot and I'm going to pull gently one tail and then the other tail until I have my loops the size that I want them. And if my tails aren't facing the direction I want, then I'm going to hold my finger on that knot again, and I'm just going to pull those tails gently and manipulate them a little bit until I have them facing the way I want. So I'm happy with that. That's going to work. I like to add a little bit of tear and tape to the back side just to keep that from sliding around too much. I don't need a lot. I'm just going to put one little strip in there. And because I am gluing this flat to my card base, I'm going to peel the backing off this tape and then use it as part of the glue to keep this down. So now I'm just adding, obviously, my very favorite glue ever, Carissa. I'm scribbling. That's for you, girl. All right. I feel so funny tonight. Hey, Janice, thanks for tuning in. Okay, now this goes right on the card front. I'm flipping my cardstock around because I can see I've got some ink stained on the back side, so I'm just going to flip this around and use that as the front instead and cover up that imperfection and just get this nicely stuck on my cardstock. And then I'm going to trim the tails of my linen thread. Linen thread is one of my absolute favorite things to add to a card front. I really like it. I go through a lot of linen thread. Oh, thanks, Carissa. I am an excellent scribbler, if I do say so myself. All right, I'm just kidding. Okay, it's been a long day, and I'm just happy to be home. Work was long, and I was having one of those days where I just felt like, I don't know if anybody gets these, but work was overwhelming. This morning and yesterday I was feeling less happy about work. It was just really tough, but I had a win today at work, so I feel a lot better. And it's funny how those little things can just brighten up your whole day. So I have got a Smoky Slate die cut. Now I cut this with the Spotlight on Nature die set, and the diameter is 3¼ inches. If you don't have a circle die, just use whatever you have in your stash. And if you don't have dies at all, you can cut yourself a square. I would maybe do, well, you could do 3¼ and 3¼ or 3x3. You'd have to play around and see. Now in the stamp set, there's a die. I'm not exactly too sure what it's for. I'm going to call it a texture die. And I am going to stamp this on my circle die in Smoky Slate. So I'm using the same color of ink as my paper. And I'm just stamping a little bit of texture on 1/2 of that circle. Then I've got the happy birthday sentiment ready to go, and early espresso ink to match my chocolate peanut butter cake. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment on the other half of this circle on an angle. All right. There we go, like so. It almost kind of looks like the moon now. That wasn't my intention. So pop up or glue down your circle, whatever you like. Hello, Divine. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, yeah. Right, Carissa. I'm definitely not the world's okayest crafter. Well, some days we'll see. All right, so scribbling my glue. I think it was Carissa who was the first person to ever mention on one of my videos that I'm a glue scribbler. So now, whenever I add my glue, of course I always think about you, Carissa. It's just the way it is. So I'm adding this, not quite in the middle, it's offset a little bit. I have to keep standing up to show you what I'm doing because I've got my camera so far above me right now, I can't quite tell if you can see what I'm doing. All right, now this card is almost done because I've already got my cake glued together. If you are using silver foil or the gold foil, if you get glue on this, then it looks really smudgy and it's hard to rub off. So I found today that if I've got this little rag that I always have with me, and I always have my little bottle of rubbing alcohol. That's how I clean the marker off my glass mat. So I just added the smallest little spritz of rubbing alcohol onto my cloth, and I gently rubbed the glue smudges off, and it came out perfect. So fun tip, because these are putting this together. If you can put this cake and the cake plate together without getting glue on your fingers, then you're amazing, because I haven't done it yet. I get extremely sticky fingers when I'm putting together this cake. So that's me. Hello, Kathleen. Thanks for tuning in. And Chelsea. Chelsea, my in-person class is on Sunday. And I am really excited to share all the projects with everybody online, but some of them I've showed already in some reels, and the rest I'm going to keep a surprise for my class, but then I'm going to show you guys all what I did. So I designed 8 different cards. They are all birthday cards, and yeah, they're pretty fun. Okay, so I've added dimensionals to the back of my cake, and I am going to pop this up on my card front. And I'm just going to stagger my cake plate in between that linen thread. All right, so there we go. Very basic, very simple. And I've got some basic gray and smoky slate pearls. and I am going to add these to the card. Wherever, it doesn't matter. I like to do them in odd numbers, typically 3. Don't ask me why, it's just my thing. And one more. Where is it going to go? Maybe in this empty space. All right, so if you wanted to keep adding on to this cake, then there are the candles and the flames that you can also die cut out and pop them right onto your cake. I think that would look really cute. But this is my casual card design, not too fancy, but a little more fancy than the beginner card because we've incorporated some die cuts and twine and gems. And I think that's it. And then of course I would probably add a layer to the inside of the card. It really depends if you like more layers or not. I typically do. So that is it. I'm going to flip the camera around. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to give you a shot of my messy bed in my craft/spare room. And all those baskets are not facing you, but those are all the card kits that I am getting ready for Sunday's in-person class. I have 12 people coming. So I've made 8 baskets with 8 baskets with 12 card kits in them. I am prepped out, friends. I am prepped out. That's a lot of paper cutting, but it will be a really good time. So thanks everybody for tuning in for Cake Celebrations Casual Card Project number 2. Next week, we're going to dive into a more avid card, which adds some more elements and gets a little bit more fancy. And this one is my favorite. So I can't wait to get into that with you guys. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I will see you next week.